All right, good morning, folks. How are you all today? Hope you're doing okay. That's awesome. All right, so today, what I'm going to be doing is carrying on from yesterday's lesson. So yesterday, we talked about cutting material and how to cut it efficiently, how to use things like a stop block for production cutting, and how to just keep ourselves safe while doing the cutting for or of the material. So what we're going to do today is we are going to start using this guy, the jointer. You guys might be a little familiar with it. We're going to be using this to get our wood ready for gluing. So by the end of today's online class, I want to have all of our arms and our seat legs glued up. So we'll have 2 arms glued up, 2 seat legs glued up. Might take a bit, but we're going to get there. I'll show you how to do it. If it's going to be taking too long, I might just glue up one example for the video, and then I'm going to show you guys, or I'll glue up the other ones off camera, and tomorrow when we get to the next lesson, we'll work with all those pieces. But for today, we're going to start with our pieces that we're going to glue up for the seat chair. So we got seat leg D, so that's 2 1x6s. We've got 2 of those, so 4 1x6s in total. And armrest H is going to be 1 1x6 and 1 1x4 for each arm, and there's 2 arms. So we've got a total of 8 pieces we're working with this morning. Once I turn this on, you probably won't hear too much of the audio, so I'm going to do a lot of my talking right now because this is a loud machine and it cuts, it's loud, and I also have to turn on the dust extractor so we don't jam up the inside of the machine. If we don't turn on the dust collector here and extract those wood chips from this machine, this whole body of this underneath here fills full of wood, and then as you're cutting, wood blows out the top of the blades here. And you got to take the whole thing apart, vacuum it out, and it's just a real big pain in the butt, especially since we don't have a local power disconnect for this, so we have to turn this off at the panel. And it's not an ideal situation, so we're going to try and avoid that by running the collector and extractor during this video. So when we're working with this and we have our wood, we're going to work on piece B right first. We're going to talk about that. When doing this, we have to figure out what is concave and what isn't, right? So we're looking at our board here. It's hard to see, but there is a bit of convexity here. So this means the underside is the concave side. And I like to start on the concave side because it's got less chance of rocking on the table. If I was to cut it on the table and this had a lot of convexity in it, it would rock back and forth. I wouldn't get a flat cut. But when I put it this way, I cut both sides equally and it takes it down and flat. I've just had a lot more success cutting that way. So that's what I've adopted. Thing is, when I do that, I'm going to be cutting my letter D off of this board. So what I need to do is I'm going to draw it on the back side once I'm done cutting all of this. So I always make sure I remark my pieces after I cut them or work with them. When we're tracing out the patterns and cutting those, we can cut our names right off of these. And when we're working in groups, having every piece identifiable is very important. So safety check here. What things do I need safety-wise, PPE-wise, before working on this machine? Let's see who's been paying attention. You can either shout it out or throw it in the chat.
Sir, what was the question again? Sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What was the question again?
Yeah, I was asking what I needed for PPE. So if you know what I need for PPE, what's one thing I should have for working on this tool?
You need to have like hearing. You need to have like hearing protection.
Hearing protection. Check. That's good. Yes, earplugs is good. No loose clothing. Perfect. That's a good one. I've got this tied on tight. Make sure loose for accessories. Right. Awesome. So Ring, right? That's coming off. Do that just like we did yesterday. No watch. Watch is okay as long as it's tight. But if you got a rollie or something like that that you don't want damage, got that nice bust down. We're gonna set that aside. We don't want those damaged. What about these guys? Safety glasses, right? So these are coming off, and we'll put the safety glasses on. Other than that, I think we're pretty good. So we mentioned hearing protection. I'll put that on when once I fire this up. But yeah, we're doing well. We've got lots of good answers there. So that's nice. With these boards, quick overview again. We're going to use the push sticks, and we are going to use the walk this board through there, right? We're not going to use our arms and extend them fully. When working here, I'm going to have both my sticks, and I'm just going to walk them right through the machine. And I'm going to try and do about, well, as little as possible on these. I'm going to cut as little as possible on these boards. I want to maintain the most thickness I can. So what I'm going to do is, when marking these boards, we want to identify that concave side. We talked about that. And I have identified this side as the concave side. But I'm going to take a pencil. You guys have probably seen me do this. And I like to draw on the whole underside of the board. And once all this is gone, it's going to tell me that I have cut this board flat. So I might re-add some of this up a little bit. I'm just going to write D on the top of it, keep it identifiable. And yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to start doing this cutting here. And this is going to be a nice slow walk. It's going to be a few of these pieces. Might be a little noisy for you. I'm going to grab some earplugs so I won't hear a thing. But we'll start that in just a moment. We're going to grab some earplugs and then we'll get this cut. All right, so that was the 8 boards for the legs and the arms. That was jointing one face. So now the next step is jointing one edge. We don't need to join both edges. We're just going to join one edge, and those are the edges that are going to come together when we glue them. So I'm going to do that. And just to check, there's a comment here. It's not to remove the pencil marks. You purposely wrote on it. Yeah, so I always write on my pieces. Helps me identify them. I always draw pencil marks on the boards, and I use those pencil marks to show me what side is not flat. So once I cut it and all the pencil marks are gone, that tells me that my board is now flat. Flat is what we want, especially when I'm working with like this. We're working with a chair. We don't want curvy, weird boards in that chair because it's going to look like a good end product. It's going to sit all weird. The legs won't all touch the ground. It's going to rock back and forth. You know, it's just not a good thing to have overall. So I'm going to turn all this back on. We're going to cut those edges quick. I'm going to slide this guard out to the edge. We're going to use those push sticks, and we're going to slide that material through, and then we're going to move on to gluing phase. So I'll turn the camera around, and we'll do some gluing on a different table. But I'm going to finish this up, and then we'll go to the gluing. Well, that's enough of that noise. So what I've done is I just jointed an edge, a single edge of every one of those boards. And one of the things I wanted to talk about on one of these boards, this one right here. So we're going to talk about knots, and a great big knot right here, even bigger on the back side, pretty ugly. But what I've done is I've jointed this edge. So when I glue this up with another piece D, sorry, this way, that's going to be on the outside, and it's going to be up here. Nice thing is, when I place my seat leg on this, seat leg D, that's not going to be incorporated into the material itself. So I'm actually going to cut that away. So knots can be okay as long as we keep track of where we place them in our wood. I always place mine on my offcuts, material that I'm going to get rid of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this material over to the table behind the camera, and I'll turn the camera around and we'll talk about some gluing. All right, that's not too bad. Okay, that's not bad. All right, so I got the table set up here. I got some big bar clamps. These things are super nice because you can make them as big or as small as you want. I've got 4 set up here. I might end up grabbing more. We might have to do 2 sets of clamps because I have 8 pieces we're going to glue. But what I've done with this wood to really help me out is on the bottom side, any of the sides I've cut, I put a check mark on. So I got a nice check mark on the bottom and a check mark on the edge that I have jointed. That's important because we want to match all of our jointed edges up. When we glue this, we're going to place the cut side, the nice flat side we jointed, that base, we're going to place that base down. We're going to point the jointed edge into the next piece, which is going to have a jointed edge on it. That's going to be this one here. So this is a jointed edge, this is a jointed base. We're going to place those just like that. That's pretty much the long and short of it. But there's a few things that I like to do that are just really good practice that make things easy for us. Before I glue anything, I have to know what I'm working with. So I'm working with softwood. This stuff is definitely not as hard as the hardwood. So we've got options. We have yellow glue or white glue. The way it works is yellow glue, formulated for hardwoods. It's got smaller, basically particulate, I guess, and gets into the tighter grains and pores of the hardwood, and it's kind of formulated to work better with those. White glue seems to work a lot better with softwood, so that's what we use here. You know where they're located in the class. Kind of want to talk to you guys about the applicator tip. So this one just has a point on it, right? We've all used this one. This one, hard to see, it's got a roller tip on it. Now these can be really useful, especially when gluing up lots of material like this. But if they don't get cleaned, which this one hasn't been cleaned properly, they get gummed up and they're a real pain in the butt. So if you are using one like this, when you're done with it, you can pull it apart, you take it off, take it to the sink, wash it out. These rollers come out real easy. You don't want a bunch of glue left down here. It's just not a good practice to have because the next person who's going to use it is going to have a hard time with it. Or if it's you who are going to use it next, say the next day, then you kind of just shot yourself in the foot from the previous day by not cleaning these up properly. So I'm going to set this aside since we don't need it. We're going to work with the white glue today. And we are going to get this glued up. So got my glue. Another really good practice. Stuff right here. Sheets of paper, kind of like a cardboardy type paper, a little heavier. This is what I place all over the table underneath my work, because there is a chance that we're going to drip glue on the table here. That is just, not something we need. We don't need a bunch of glue drying on the table. It's hard to damage softwood if we're throwing softwood on the table, and this doesn't look very nice. So what I do is I place this underneath all my clamps before I do my gluing, and this catches any of the glue that falls down. So. What I like to do is I like to line up all my clamps, open them way up, because I'm actually going to clamp both legs at the same time. Normally, we would clamp one set of legs with one set of clamps, but since I'm clamping a whole bunch, I'm going to show you a way to keep the stuff flat and nice while clamping multiple pieces at the same time. A little more paper under here, just to make sure that I'm not anything on the table. Add one on the end, and then we'll be good. All right, so these pieces here, roughly 33 inches. We talked about it yesterday. Clamps are spaced about 33 inches apart. And I use the wood project. I want them spaced fairly equally. I don't want 4 clamps in the middle, nothing on the outside edges. We want even pressure across this whole joint when gluing it together. So I kind of set things up, check it out. That all looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to stand one of these boards up, and it'll be this one. What we're going to do here is we're going to place some glue on the edge. I'm only going to glue one board, or put glue on one board, because we don't need to put glue on both edges. If we glue one board here or one board here, put them together, they're just going to slip and slide and not work near as nice as we want. Keeping them flat is going to be difficult. We could end up with 2 boards that are way offset when they dry, and we don't want that. I take this glue here. Nice, healthy little bead on there. And some people don't like doing this. I've always used my fingers, spread the glue out. I spread the glue across the whole face, making sure every bit of this wood is covered in glue. When I say this wood, I mean this edge. I'm not covering this whole thing in glue. Just covering the edge so we can glue it to the other edge. So any extra you have, you can wipe off. Paper here is great for that. I got a little more than I need, so I'm going to take some off. This is looking pretty good though, all in all. I've got an apron. Whatever. Bring this a little closer so you can see it. So this whole edge, it's hard to tell the contrast, but that's glued from end to end, covered nicely. So I'm going to place that up against the next one, and then we're going to glue up our second set. So I'm going to lay that down right here. And I'm going to place this one right up against it. We're going to get those touching. And we're going to grab our other seat leg B. What I'm going to do is repeat the same process and put them in these clamps as well right up here. So lay that one there, this one One here. The edge I'm going to glue, so let's glue that. A little smaller bead of glue on this time. That way I don't have too much excess. I'd rather too much than too little. It's easy to get rid of extra glue, but once this glue is dry, you can't separate it and add more glue. It just isn't going to work. So if you don't have enough glue on there, your pieces aren't going to work properly. They won't be as strong as they could be. And say you come home and flop in the Mississippi chair after a hard day of online learning, and the leg gives out and falls apart, that's not a good thing. We don't want that happening. So we are going to make sure we got enough glue on this to keep everything good and happy. All right, so that one's glued up. Well, it's got glue on the edge. We're going to place this one with the jointed face down up against this one. Those are looking good. So I've got two separate pieces I'm going to be gluing together in one shot. What I'm going to do here, just so you guys can see for reference, I'm going to take a couple of these pieces of paper towel, and we're going to stick them in here. That way you can tell where the division is between these two boards. These won't stick together. We don't need to put any glue there. I'm going to line these up closer to each other. I've got my 4 clamps here. I'm going to start moving my clamps so they are nice and tight to the end here. So these clamps operate by rotating a swivel on the back. It's going to push a foot outwards, and then what it's going to do is put pressure against this foot here once we move this foot up towards this. With these soft foot, though, we need to be careful. We put these together, just crank, crank, crank. We're going to push this foot into the soft foot and damage it up here. We don't want to damage our wood, so we're going to put some pressure on it, but we're not going to go ham. We're not going to go crazy on it. Put that there. Put that up there. That there. So I've got these 4 pieces set up fairly well. What I'm going to start doing is slowly apply pressure with these clamps just to start tightening up the joints. We want enough pressure to keep things tight, but we don't want so much pressure that we're causing bows in our wood. Because if you take 2 ends and you push real hard, that middle is going to kick upwards, and that's going to be detrimental to our material. So we're just going to a little bit of pressure and try and keep it as even as possible. And that should be helping us out. One thing I really like to do, though, to make sure that everything stays flat, is like add additional clamps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little piece of material here and here on the joints where B meets the other board, and we're going to suck those together nice and tight, and that's going to help keep our board more flat. So I've got a couple pieces of wood here, and I can clamp this underneath, and I can place another one on top and place clamps along it. That's going to hold my joints nice and tight together. So I can place those pieces just like that, put some clamps on there, which I'm going to grab, and that will keep those nice and tight. Okay, a couple clamps here. You guys have seen these ones, pretty familiar with them. The hand screw clamps. These ones you can tighten up a little more. I center these clamps right above the joint where the glue is on the wood. Now, if you get glue that's squishing up between your boards, that's fine. I actually just call it squish up, but too much we need to get rid of. I got a little line here. I'm not worried about a little line of it, but if we have a whole bunch, we want to try and get rid of some of that. I don't have a whole bunch here because I put on just as much glue as I needed, so we should be okay. So I got 2 boards here that are going to do a good job on clamping all this down and tight. I got a couple more clamps. We should have a pretty good bond with all the stuff here. We're making sure everything's going to be level and flat, just how we want it. I got my 4 clamps on the table. I'm going to tighten these up just a little bit more. Not much, I don't want to damage anything, but I want to ensure that those joints are nice and tight. So we pretty much have this done here. Now with this stuff, this glue will set up fairly quick. It's got about a 20-minute setup time, but that just means it starts to get hard in about 20 minutes. The cure time is what we want. Cure time just means that glue has gone through its full chemical transformation, it's bonded, it's dried, and it should be permanent. That time, 24 hours. So in 24 hours, tomorrow, I can take the clamp off this. Well, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. Now, what you guys can't see is we got stuff all over all the tables in the shop here. We have different projects going on, things like that. So if you have limited space and you have more wood to glue up, we still have to glue up the armrests. They're right here. We can move this now, but we need to be careful when doing so. If we have a whole bunch of squish up glue, what we should do is when we move this, we should stand it on end. That way the glue will run from the top to the bottom in a straight line. If we stand it on a side, so the side closest to you is the bottom and this is the top, we've got a lot of glue here. That's going to run across the boards and down the boards. We don't want that. We want to keep glue off the boards as much as possible. So I'm going to pick this up and move it. Hopefully we don't have a spectacular failure and nothing comes apart. We will see. But you can clear space on the table quite easily by just moving this stuff here out of your way. And then you've got your workspace back. So we're going to try this, see what happens, and hopefully it's all good. If everything's nice and tight, we should be able to pick that up. And this is what the back looks like. So we got lots of glue drips on the paper here. That's from all the squish up, the glue falling out. That's fine. If this is standing like this, it's going to run it down. I just put these pieces of paper in here so you can see that I've got the 2 sections of boards connected and they aren't glued. This paper will come out. It's just for a visual reference for you guys. So we can take this, set it on the floor, and start our next set. Once I'm done, I'm going to do another set. I just do a little reset on my papers, make sure everything's all good. And then we're pretty much ready to go. We'll have to grab some more bar clamps. I got them on the wall here. more hand clamps, my glue's on the table, I got sticks, I've got everything I need. Since that took a while, we're not going to glue up the second set together. I'm going to cut you guys loose. I'm going to release your test. I'm going to take attendance and do that stuff. So that is the lesson for today. So hopefully, fingers crossed, if everything came out, or hopefully everything comes out nice and straight, and I don't have a spectacular failure to show you in the morning. Could be that way. If it is that way, we'll start over again. Sometimes things happen. Nobody's perfect. I've done this a bunch of times, but I still mess up. We all make mistakes. It's what humans do. As long as we learn from them, though, and don't make the same mistake a bunch of times, I think that's actually the definition of insanity, doing the same thing a bunch of times, expecting a different result. So hopefully this works out. Thank you guys for joining me today. I am going to cut this video here. Make sure you drop your names in the chats for attendance. Ooh, attendance is, or chat is going off today. Thank you much. So I'll have to go through a whole bunch of that. There have been some names I've been missing. I haven't seen some names in there. Then I do attendance. I get an email saying, oh, hey, you know, I was here, Mr. Scott. I don't know how you missed me. Sorry, but I was here. And yeah, so what I need is names in the attendance or in the chat, so I can see that. All right, you guys, thank you much. I appreciate it. Get your names in there. And you guys are free. I'll release that test in just a couple minutes.
Sir, I'm late.